morning, Dennis.
Good evening, Mashi. How's it going? I went to drink out of this candle because because my drink was next to it.
Habits. Great, Dennis. It's been a while.
It's been a while, yeah. We got a lot of knowledge, a lot of wisdom pent up. You want to dish out on the fine folks at home.
It's true. And I wanted to do, it's funny. I think that one of the things about, I don't think I know, you read, you discuss, you learn, and you hear things. And this is a quote actually from Black Panther.
Okay.
From Shuri.
Who your second Black Panther quote.
Yes, I like the Black. It's probably the best MCU film, the first one. I haven't seen the second one. And I can't remember the context of it, but Shuri has this quote where she says, just because something works doesn't mean it can't be improved.
Okay.
And I think that's true in almost every situation, right? John, our old boss, still my boss. And I think this might be a Tony Robbins quote, constant, never-ending improvement. Improve, improve, improve. And I think that there's a lot of truth to this, but the reason I wanted to talk about it today, just because something works doesn't mean it can't be improved. There's a drive, I think, intuitively in my mind that says, oh, well, then we need to improve it.
Mm-hmm.
And I stopped for a second because in my mind, it evoked this idea that just because something can be improved doesn't mean we should put our time and energy into that. Sometimes having something work is enough. And then we need to move on to the next thing.
Right. Perfect is the enemy of good, or in many cases, perfect is the enemy of great. And I think there's a natural drive to want to try and perfect things and iterate on them. Maybe perfect is the wrong word, but certainly iterate on them and improve them. And I think the more useful saying, like you mentioned, is the inverse of that, is to let working things work. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And work on other things. And the reason for that is it's very rare that everything's working and you're trying to just improve those things. More often than not, you're devoting yourself to improving something that's working because that's easier than trying to fix the thing that isn't.
That's the key. What you said is so important there, where we tell ourselves we're making progress. We tell ourselves, hey, this is where my focus and attention should be. The 20% of things that are working, let's improve them. What about the 80% of things that aren't, well, I don't know about 80%, but what about all those things that aren't working?
Mm-hmm.
And we distract ourselves because we naturally want to look at the things that are working and tinker, tweak, tinker, change, improve. Now, sometimes that is important. I don't want to downplay that, but really finding that line where when do we focus on improvement and when do we focus on whether something's working or not?
I don't know if you have this show or an equivalent in the US, but there's a show here called Grand Designs, where they'll take people who are usually people who are building their own home and have some like kind of wild off the cuff design for it. Or sometimes it's just that it's super ambitious. And there was this one guy on an episode that Nick and I watched a while ago where he was building his entire home, like 5-bedroom house, by himself, basically, out of like wood. And then the guy's like, you are building your home like it's the 1400s. Like, what are you doing? And like, they have this massive archway in the hallway that is that shape because that is the shape the tree was when he cut it. That kind of approach. And he gets into these things where he's like working on the door jambs, which are hinges that he's made like, himself from wood. And he's like, well, I spent 2.5 weeks just doing this nice little line around the edge. And it's really, really good. And like, I like the level of detail it gets. And the host is like, yeah, you don't have a roof yet? And he's like, yeah, I'm going to get to that. And that is the kind of like, that's the danger, the pitfall of what we're talking about here. For reference, it takes him about 11 years to finish the house. All the kids he has that he wants to live in the house have like all moved away by the time it's done. And that is the danger of this like detail-oriented obsessive approach.
But he did finish the house.
He did finish the house. There was every chance he just died, by the way, before he I don't like it wasn't a net health thing. He could just hit by a car or whatever.
Oh my gosh.
But he's like salvaging scrap and agonizing over like, oh, wouldn't it be nice? Like, these angles are a little harsh on this like balustrade. I want to make like this little head that like sits on top of it. And then I've got a couple designs percolating in my head for the ones I want to paint and stuff. And it's like, bro, finish the house, deal with that. The weird part is you can deal with that afterwards as well. Mm-hmm. But you're right. And I think this is a skill sometimes, and something I'm very guilty of, is I will double down, not just on things that are working, but I will double down on things that I'm good at. And
we want to veer towards
pull out of things I'm bad at. And that is powerful, but the pile of things you neglected does start to add up after a while.
And this is where management and leadership can really come in, is putting, Dennis on what Dennis is good at, Mashi on what Mashi's good at,
Right.
John at what John's good at.
There's
And that's
huge,
when you
multi-million dollar consultancy companies that will sell you personality tests to determine exactly how to do this.
Yeah, disc profile, high C, high D, high
Mm-hmm.
I. I think, though, I don't want to leave Shuri behind.
Okay.
It is true that sometimes, and this is the skill. Just because something is working doesn't mean we shouldn't give it any attention.
That's true.
Right. Sometimes the duct tape is going to wear out and you could change it up. But the fact is, you need to put a roof on it before you spend weeks agonizing about door hinges. Right. And that's the real key, because I do think we do tend to gravitate towards what we want to gravitate towards. And we gravitate away from the things, the projects, the problems, the issues that we don't want to work on. And what you said is true. Part of what guides what we do want to focus on is what we're good at. And part of what we don't want to focus on, which, oh, by the way, may not be working that well, are the things we're not good at.
This is like essential. This is the reason that like product management as a whole, organizational chapter exists, is to make sure that the right efforts are being put on the right things. And that's where there's all these steps to try and justify this sort of stuff. A colleague of mine, Michael, who I'll tag below, one time when I was trying to talk to him about a feature that we had upcoming, said, yeah, but this other like more critical thing is like, I'd rather we did this. He described it as putting icing on a bag of flour and calling it a cake, which I've used several times since. Which is that sort of thing, like, hey, there's still, the roof needs to go in before you start working on the door hinges. And it's that kind of thing, that the real skill is being able to discern those ahead of time and kind of overcome that human desire and tendency to barrel down into the stuff that is easy, quick win stuff you're interested in.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I don't want to shortchange the process of improvement. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's not quick. Sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes there's something that's grabbed your attention and you're fascinated by it and you've made it work, or you've built it from the ground up and now you want to tune, but you got to walk away. And this quote, the reason I want to talk about it is I think it's very, very interesting in the sense that we talk about these quotes, and very often I think we're presenting quotes that we believe in, and then we discuss like, hey, here's what this quote means to me, here's where it's speaking to me, and here's why I believe the truth of it. And I do believe the truth in this. Just because something works doesn't mean it can't be improved. It's just that I think that's true of everything. You can always build a better mousetrap. So where does it end? And what does it cost you to have that mindset, to look at everything and say, how do I improve this, rather than that whole pile of stuff that needs to actually work before you can get to the improvement stage?
Well, the danger that the Shuri quote warns of, which is something that you also run into, is, well, we don't need to work on that. That's worked for years. We don't need to touch it. It's fine.
Right.
And that's not always true. But that kind of, I think, implies the value in overhauls or looking at things with fresh eyes more than fine tuning, really. Mm-hmm. Fine tuning, by definition, I think, is always not an amazing use of time.
And improvement,
making a Formula One car.
Improvement too. I'm going to draw an artificial distinction here because this clearly is improvement, but updating things and keeping them current with modern technology isn't as much an improvement of the overall product as it is like making sure it continues to work. And I do think there's a difference there, because improving it is like, hey, it's already working, it's fine, it's stable, it's good, now let's make it better. Whereas keeping it working, I think, is not an improvement, it's a necessity.
Yes. Maintenance is more important than innovation at times.
Yes.
As boring as that might be.
But I mean, and I really do want to get back to the idea that this is it's just always true. It's always true.
It is kind of a softball, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because the things we can choose, if we are undisciplined, to constantly focus on our pet projects, to constantly focus it on the things we want to work on, we want to look at, we want to be doing, and just say, no, this is legit. I need to make this better. I need to get this, 0.001% improvement. It's going to change everything. Newsflash, it will change nothing. It'll be a de minimis change. And, I get caught up in this. John, as much as I love him, gets so caught up in this. And then he calls me out on it and I call him out on it, as I just have. And so it's funny to see.
That's
because
one of the main things I miss about working with Ryan Darius, because he's very quick to be like, this is working, leave it alone, shut up, this other part is broken, please fix this.
that's very true. That's very, very true. He's like, this is working. And then he builds rails against like Mashi and John getting involved, because he's like, once you guys start, we are the type of people who are like, ooh, what are we doing? We're improving. It's like, no, you're burning it to the ground. What are you doing? It's like, I'm helping. I'm Ralph Wiggum. I'm helping.
Well, Mashi, I hope you go out in your life today and you make sweeping improvements and not fine tunings on things that are both difficult and easy.
Yes, run before you look to improve. Look at what's not working. Look at what's broken. Look to improve after everything works. Also, by the way, when you fix things that are broken, sometimes you change what you're trying to improve. Mm-hmm. And the improvements you've layered on could be a massive waste of time. Mm-hmm. So remember that. But I feel bad for Shuri here, because I feel like I kind of used her as a straw.
You should feel bad for the screenwriter, really, right? It's their fault.
Yeah. But just because something works doesn't mean it cannot be improved. We do need to look at the improvements. Constant, never-ending growth and improvement is important. But, mind the stepchildren. Let's look at everything else too. All right, Dennis. You have a tofu stir fry waiting. You have a great evening.
You have a good morning.